Hello and welcome to Center of Weirdness, an Erie, Indiana sideshow podcast from the weirdos at predictocast. I'm Josh, and with me, as always, is Skinner.
Hey, Josh. Hey, all you babies.
I always forget that that's your catchphrase, and
We record
it
these
always
so far
delights
apart.
me.
Are so far apart. All these babies who haven't hit puberty yet, because that is truly the most eerie thing of all.
And we are here today to discuss episode either 14 or 15, depending on which sort of chronology you go by, whether it's the Amazon Prime one or the IMDb listing. Who knows? Who cares? The episode in question, Mr. Cheney, broadcast in March of 1992. Again, dates vary, but they do agree that it was broadcast in March of 1992. And pretty solid episode, I have to say.
Pretty solid. I mean, this is some of the episodes, the ones that we like, kind of just ramble on a bit, have a little sidetrack, much like a podcast, little sidetracks, little things that don't really matter, things that are just kind of filler. This one is kind of sets up the premise, gives you the premise, sets up the solution, gives you the conclusion.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I actually enjoyed it quite a bit. I enjoyed the vibe they were going for. They didn't really dumb it down too much or try to do like an irreverent take on it like they do with some of these things. Like sometimes they'll have things where you're like, okay, I see what they're going for, but they kind of try to put their own little spin on it or make it like quirky for, you know, the people who are making it and also like maybe the audience that they're going for. But like this one is just a straight ahead kind of werewolf story, and they just go with that premise, and it works really well. So basically what happens, or what it's about, is that every 13 years, the town of Erie has a harvest king. They name someone to be a harvest king. And that harvest king goes into the woods, faces the Erie wolf, and then there are 13 years of good luck brought to the town.
And low taxes.
And low taxes for some reason. But the big issue is that none of the previous harvest kings were ever seen again. They have all gone to Spain, which I say with quotes. And so they set this up pretty quickly at the beginning, and it's pretty cool. Like, it's a cool idea. I always like things like this. Like, there's some imagery later on when Marshall, spoiler alert, is named the Harvest King, where he's wearing these like this plant flower crown and like these sort of flower wreaths and stuff around his neck, and it's very midsummer looking. And I always kind of dig like the weird sort of folk horror idea of like this person has to be sacrificed in order to ensure a bountiful harvest for the rest of the community. So like this is the greater good kind of thing. Like we're gonna kill this person, but it's for the betterment of everyone. And I always like stuff like that, and they do a pretty good job of setting up something here, which is like, that's kind of fun.
Yeah, like, I mean, that's the fun of doing one of these things in a small town, is that, like, you know, if you live in a giant suburb, like, there's no, like, it has its own creepiness, but, like, there's no thing of where, like, everybody's in on this thing, all the town elders are in on something, like, you know, the mayor, a farmer, the guy who owns the gag shop, but, like, you can't,
yeah,
there's no
the powers that be.
There's no like general will of the community in most bigger places. It's just too many people. But like you have something like this, it's fun. And what I like with this episode is, as far as it being straightforward, like it sets up that the person who is kicked Harvest King is killed by a werewolf, and it ensures whatever, right?
Yeah.
And like it basically sets that up immediately. You are told pretty bluntly at the start, like, it's probably a werewolf, and it probably kills them. And for this show, they could do a lot of things where they get cute with it, where it's not actually a werewolf, it turns out to be something else, and they're not actually killed, something else happens. No, it's actually a werewolf, and all these people have been murdered. That's it.
Yeah. It's weird too, because I guess so does Cheney, Mr. Cheney, who is played by Stephen Root, doing a probably very problematic stutter.
I know that it's supposed to tell us that he is the werewolf because he can't say wolf. He goes wolf, and he says it way too often. That's not a thing that werewolves can't say wolf. And he also doesn't know he's the werewolf. He's not aware. Yeah,
that's the other thing. Is that it's subconsciously it won't let him say it because he knows deep down that he is. But so he's been doing this for how long? Or it seems like a long time.
Because it's back to the early 1900s, but also if they had set up that he was one of the kings, and he got turned into it by a previous werewolf, which they do in this show. Have it where if you're scratched or bit by a werewolf, you turn into a werewolf, because that kind of happens to Marshall. Spoilers.
Yeah.
But it's never explained if he's kind of immortal or he's just a victim at a different time. Because they never set up whether he only turns into a werewolf once every 13 years or if he turns into a werewolf every time it's a moon.
And also it's weird because he's the farmer, he seems to be this big guy, and so they're feeding him, and then he's just good for 13 years, and that allows him to have good harvests. Maybe
he has a really good freezer, a really good deep freeze in his garage.
He has the most efficient metabolism of all time. It just takes him 13 years to digest and get all of the nutrients from one meal.
There's this, I guess, to me, there's this moment of we have all of a sudden the Council of Elders, which is just funny for this show because it always includes the gangster owner, but the Council of Elders for the town, which are Stephen Root, John Astin, and Gregory Itzin, and it's I kind of wanted those because Astin was just added last episode or so. This is the only episode with Stephen Root in it. It's in the show now and then. But I kind of want them in all. I wish they were in all the episodes.
Yeah, that would be cool, because if they were sort of this, I know that this is not what this show is, obviously, but it would be cool if it's sort of set up as these are the guys that run the town, and Marshall realizes at some point in the series that they're sort of pulling the strings on all this stuff, and they're the cause of a lot of things happening, or they're allowing things to happen and they're not stopping it. And in the sort of they're allowing stuff to happen because of tradition, they're not stopping things, like the tornado days thing that we had a couple episodes ago, and this Harvest King thing, because it benefits them, and then they become sort of the focus of Marshall's campaign to help Erie, because it's not the town that's weird. Weird things happen in the town, but because these people are allowing it to happen. And that would be interesting if you had them in every episode as this these sort of bad guys. And obviously we get one of them kind of defecting in this, but it would be interesting if you had more to build that up, I guess.
I think in a way it's kind of past eyes. John Astin, absolute legend. It's in his greatest role. He's always a great slime ball, but this is before, he's already he has been a consummate working actor by 92 or 93 here. But Stephen Root hasn't become Mr. James yet. He hasn't done Office Space. He's not a name yet. So, but looking back, everyone knows who Stephen Root is now. You've seen him in something.
True.
So you look back oh, these are three well-known actors who, this kids show almost shouldn't have.
Yeah, Gregory Itzin was the vice president and then the president for several seasons on 24 or whatever, he's done lots of things since this. But yeah, it is, I think it is hindsight too. It's wanting to just see more of these guys and how they interact and stuff.
There's when he's not doing the stutter and everything, they're so good. There's three very good actors at what they do as character actors, and you're man, this is just like on the middle of the Sunday morning on fucking ABC. And what are they doing here?
Was this not a Fox show?
What? I don't even remember. I'm sure
I think
we
it was
talked about
Fox. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Fox because I mean, I'm almost positive. Who knows? I could be wrong, and I'm not going to look it up. But so yeah, they set up this Harvest King Festival thing, and they're like, every 13 years this happens. And for whatever reason, they're doing this announcement at the World of Stuff, of course, and they're talking about it and how important it is and everything. So people are entering their names, and Cindy, Marshall's sister, says, "Oh, you should order or you should enter this because all the Harvest Kings get all the Harvest Babes." And it's like, why is this sister telling her younger brother to enter so he can get his dick wet?
Also, she's not wrong.
No, she isn't. That's the funny thing, is that she is 100% right, as we'll later see in the episode. We also see our friend
Dash Plus.
Jason Marsden, Dash X. We don't know his name yet, but we get a hint of where the name is going to come from because he has some X's on the back of his hands, which just led me to believe that he's a straight edge kid.
I'm just still thinking they're pluses, and he's going to be Dash Plus to me.
Dash Plus, or your new high-end streaming service.
It sounds like it. Like you get all your favorite high-speed sports on there, like running and racing, and maybe bicycling, if you don't want to count that as racing.
Dash Plus has this really cool special feature where you can watch everything in 2 times speed.
But you don't have that 30 seconds back button, which isn't it the worst ever when you have literally, there's nothing worse in history than having a new streaming service starts up and they have one direction 13, 15 second skip, but not the other direction. You got to have both. You can't only have one. Some of them, when they launch, only have one. Why is that? Dash Plus wouldn't have that. Only fast forwards.
He is in the store stealing food. Stealing a bunch of canned food from the shelves, putting them in his big oversized coat. And Marshall spots him and says, I haven't seen him in several weeks since they had our last adventure. So it's kind of, and he specifically references the last episode. So I'm wondering if this is now when, and I think we might have talked about it last time too, this is when they sort of transitioned into a more serialized narrative, even though it's only got a few more episodes left to wrap up its only season, basically. I wonder if this is sort of the point where everything is kind of connected from now on. So maybe we will see more of the whole the collective of town elders or whatever, even though they are, I guess, kind of dissolved at the end of this episode. So maybe not, but who knows?
I can probably promise you that they have Astin on as much as they can possibly get, because he is all over the intro now. I
do think we did look that up, and I do think he is in, I think at least 3 of the next episodes. I think there's only 4 episodes left, or 4 or 5 episodes left, and I think he's in 3 to 4 of the next 5. So he is sticking around at least as much as they can have it. I don't know about Gregory Itzin, but
I do like, so what they're setting up where it's gonna be a random lottery for this Harvest King, but it's not random. They basically pick someone that they don't think anyone would miss.
Yes.
These 3, and they're eating, we have Stephen Root just scarfing down a huge plate of ribs, in case naming him Mr. Cheney and saying Harvest Eerie Wolf didn't make you think enough. This guy's probably a werewolf. He's also eating ribs like a fucking mad man. And they decide that they were going to pick the creepy kid with the hair, the sneaky kid with the hair. No one will miss him. That is Dash Plus.
Yeah, they don't like him, so they're totally
they're right
fine.
to not like him, by the way.
Yeah, he is. I mean, he is stealing from this store, and
he's stealing at this moment again. He was caught stealing before, and he's back to steal more. He's at he is much like Marshall. He's at the teller.
He is, he is snuck back into the store and he's hiding behind the register and he's overhearing their conversation as they're talking about all this. And so I guess that means like, how did they decide that? Like, because we see earlier, like we see the family of the previous Harvest King and they look like the American Gothic painting.
Really?
Basically.
Did you read the IMDb trivia for this episode that mentioned that's what they look like?
Did they? I didn't catch that.
It's a little bit of trivia. They look like the American Gothic. You wouldn't know that unless you read the trivia. I think the idea is that these two people are in on it because they're like, where Marshall goes, where is your son? They're like, he's in Spain. So they clearly don't care.
I think that maybe they must, that's what I was kind of getting at. Like, I wonder if the people because they picked someone that nobody would miss. So does that imply that the family wouldn't miss their child?
They seem kind of emotionless, so maybe
they do. But the wife seems to kind of be going down a path of like, it was when our son was named Harvest King. It was, and she gets cut off by the husband going, "It was the greatest day of our lives." So like, maybe they got something out of it. Maybe they got some sort of monetary payment or
here's
like
here's what I think
better harvest for them. I don't know.
I think it's this thing where like, the house was too full with this kid. He wasn't getting laid as much with the kid out of the way. He's just making whoopee every day.
He made her cross stitch that and put it up on the wall. With the kid out of the way, we make whoopee every day.
It rhymes. So it has to be true. So they put down sneaky kid with the hair. Like literally that's what they write down. Yeah. The gray hair, and they put it down on the lottery ticket, and then he hides that one in the cash register, and Dash takes it out, and he could put anyone's name here.
Yeah, he could put the mayor's name.
Anyone, because all the other people weren't little kids; they were adults. He puts Marshall's name.
Yeah, that's the only sort of moment that kind of rings false, but maybe he does it on purpose because he knows that Marshall will be able to like figure out what's going on and stop it from happening.
The second episode in a row where he causes Marshall's problem and then solves Marshall's problem.
Yes. I wonder if that's going to be a running gag going forward.
Like he does something sneaky to Marshall and then immediately kind of feels bad and has to help him, or just the thing is that like Dash appears to love other people's misfortunes. Whenever whenever anything bad is happening to Marshall, he comes in with the biggest fucking smile on his face. Like he literally is getting high off of it.
He is a fucking sadist. I think that's what we're led to believe here.
I think I saw, because I try not to look but too much ahead, and I remember little bits, but I think I saw somewhere like the going theory of the show would continue was that Dash was an alternate universe's Marshall. And I'm like,
that would make sense.
It makes sense, but also that would make he hates this alternate universe version of himself.
Well,
but yet
of course.
he had some kind of
self-hatred,
self-preservation mix. Also, why the alternate universe version of Marshall be an entirely different kid? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, but think about it though. If you went to a different dimension somehow, like if you ended up somewhere else and it was like your dimension but slightly different, and you found someone who was basically you, wouldn't you be like? And they seem to have it. They seem to have it better. Like better off than you did, because it seems like wherever Dash X came from, maybe wasn't great.
He always seems like he's one step away from being the kid who eats fish heads.
If you got to somewhere and you're like, oh, it's me, but like they have a family that cares about them and they have a really good friend and like they're generally like they seem well adjusted. Like, and their world is in a complete, like, mess. Yeah, you'd be angry at that person. I could see that being a thing.
Also, like, Marshall's really hateable. Like, More kids should not like him. This is continuing my tally of every like third episode or so. This is an episode where people call him Mars again.
Yes, they do. It does seem to just change at a whim of the writer, I guess.
There must be certain writers or super people in the writing room who like the idea of everyone calling him Mars, and some who do not, because it's just like, and it's never just like a one-off. Like there'll be an episode where like that someone calls him Mars 4 or 5 times, and there'll be 3 episodes in a row where no one calls him Mars.
And then this episode, I think it's exclusively Mars, until Dash X starts calling him Marsh,
which makes more sense.
Yeah, because it's Marshall. So where are we in this? Dash X changes it. He puts Marshall's name on there. And Marshall is named the winner the next day. He's named the new Harvest King, and he's very surprised because he did not even enter himself. He doesn't know how that even happened. He gets carried off on the shoulders of these random people, and Dash X is just overjoyed at this development. And so everybody is very like happy for Marshall. They bring him a cow. I don't really know why they bring him a cow.
I think it's funny. It's there to be funny. Like there is a scene later when they have the werewolf tied up in their house, and you just hear mooing in the background.
Oh, I didn't notice that. That's great. Okay, well that's fun. I didn't realize that they actually kept the cow gag going. Like, why doesn't he just eat the cows? Like, why doesn't the werewolf? Does he like have to? Maybe he does eat his own cows when he turns into werewolves during other years, but it's 13 years that he has to have a human. Like he has to eat a human in order to maintain or something. I don't know.
I wish it was explained better, but the episode is nice and lean.
Yeah, it is. I don't hate it that much, like in terms of them not explaining it, because sometimes when things happen on this show, they don't give it the attention that it needs to help it make sense. And in this one, I'm kind of okay with it. Like it's just sort of that weird thing of like, this is what happens and this is how we've managed. And maybe it's just because he, gets extra strength from eating a human. And so he feels better and he can do better work on the farm for 13 years or something. And he just starts to get depleted a little bit at the end of that 13 years. So he needs more human flesh to, keep himself going.
Yeah. I would like to think that it's just weird because Mr. Cheney has never been in the show before, and he won't be again. So
no,
it just is kind of a thing. But yeah. The cow was a great gag, like for when they're not doing their background stuff as much as they were earlier in the first half of the season, where like there's just so much background gags going on.
Yeah,
I mean the show seems so divorced from daytime. Kids getting hit by milk trucks in the broad daylight. Most of the episodes seem at night now. It just seems like it's an entirely different aesthetic to the show, kind of.
Well, speaking of that too, like even the opening credits here, they are slightly different. Like it still has the same basic setup, but a lot of the clips within the credits seem like they're from episodes we haven't seen yet. So I feel like this is like the midpoint where they started doing all of this extra stuff, maybe hoping that there would be a second season or, whatever, but they filmed
got notes in some way.
Yeah, they definitely had gotten notes, which I think is why Dash X is here.
Because he's going to give it to you. Rest in power.
Oh, rest in peace. Yeah. So they bring in this giant cow, and then all of these random girls who are seemingly older than Marshall, but they're dressed like there's cheerleaders, there's hockey players, but all of these women come in. They're not women, they're probably high schoolers, but they come in. They're definitely older than Marshall though, and they're looking for the Harvest King. And they run in. They put flower crowns on him. They put like wreaths on him. He looks like he's the girl from Midsummer, and they are just immediately into him, and it's so strange.
They're rubbing his cheeks and going, "Ooh, peach fuzz," and somewhere in the background, not seen on camera, Sydney's going like, "Oh yeah, this does it for me." I'm so excited about my brother getting female attention.
And somewhere at home when this episode aired, some kid was watching it and going, "Oh man, I wish that was me."
There's some kid who's watching this thinking about his sister being interested in him getting girls, and that kid was John Pornotube. Him and his friend Stephen Brazier's.
So they so he's a little surprised by all this. He still doesn't know quite how to take it. We see a scene of Dash X going through all of these old newspapers in the archives, trying to find out some information about the previous Harvest Kings, to see what's going on. And he finds a couple of interesting papers. One about the mayor winning in a landslide. So I guess things are going very well for him because low taxes and perfect harvests, I guess, do a good job.
That's how I vote for anybody.
We're going to give you perfect harvests, low taxes.
Is it that off from reality?
No, not really. Also on the newspapers have some headlines: Disco Craze Sweeps in Indiana from 1979, and Prohibition, Why We Love It from 1927.
This is a town that's always been on the right side of history.
Yeah, regularly sacrificing people to werewolves and tornadoes. And, banning alcohol. But they like disco, so they're not all bad.
I mean, not to get political about this episode about politics, how different is it to sacrifice one young man to a werewolf for low taxes and a good harvest than sacrificing hundreds of thousands of grandparents to keep stores open?
Oh, no.
I think your grandparent would be happy to do it, says prominent Texas politicians.
I think if we had, this might be a controversial take here, so please, don't tweet at me. But if the opportunity presented itself where you could sacrifice one person to a violent death at the hands of a werewolf and ensure health and wellness and prosperity for your entire town and its citizens for 13 years, I totally can see people doing that.
This last year has taught me, yes, I can. Not that I had many doubts beforehand, but my God.
Oh, but my hot take was that I don't necessarily think that's the worst idea.
We'd be there'd be some people who were upset at the person who decided that it was okay for us to do that. And then there's the other half would be, think they're a hero for doing that. Some might put him on SNL.
But it would have to be voluntary.
Would it?
That's what I would say. That's the only way I would be okay with it is it has to be voluntary. The person has to
Do they get
volunteer.
a Make-A-Wish first?
Yes, they do. It's just like a Make-A-Wish thing. They get whatever they want, and then they go out into the woods and they're eaten by a werewolf.
Okay, what if they have to be not non-terminally ill?
Yeah, no, they have to be healthy. This cannot be a person who's gonna die. They have to vote. They have to volunteer to say I'm willing to sacrifice my perfect health and future happiness because I could live for 40 more years, whatever. And they have to be younger than 50.
Younger than 50.
That's a rule. So
yes, and then they have a Make-A-Wish. They ask for a day with John Cena.
Yeah,
and John Cena has to do whatever they say.
Yeah. I think that's totally fair.
That's literally always the rule, and it's always John Cena.
It's always John Cena. I think that's totally a fair thing. If that would have gotten us out of the mess of the last year. I would have sacrificed myself to be ripped apart by a werewolf.
It depends on how slowly they eat me.
I think I would do it because I could, as I was being consumed and having the flesh torn from my limbs, I could be like, I'm doing this to help people, and that would be fine. I would go out knowing that I did a good thing.
I would sit there dying a horrible, painful death and think, Man, John Cena was so cool. He had to do whatever I said for one day.
Yeah. And I would just make him eat really unhealthy food.
He'd be so upset. He wouldn't be able to go on Instagram.
We'd eat nothing but fried food all day.
He'd be sitting there like, I can't Insta any of this stuff.
It would be awesome.
Here, guess what, John? It's happening again every 13 years.
He'd spend that 13 years getting in peak physical shape for all the various things that he's doing, and then he would have to just lose it all in a single day, where we would consume 50,000 calories.
I was like, they're doing the little roll thing, and they pull the name out, and they pull your name, and you're like, oh shit, and then you hear doo doo doo, and then music hits up, and you're like, oh well, maybe it's not all so bad.
And then when he dies, it goes to his children.
He has like it goes from generation to generation.
That's right. Yeah. So we see Marshall and Mr. Cheney, of course, named after Lon Chaney, as we'll soon learn. They're sitting around a campfire out in the woods. And he is telling him sort of the traditions of you got to stay quiet. You can't eat anything out here. You have to keep things on the like. You have to be very calm and cool out here while we wait for the wolf. And Marshall's not really having it. He starts trying to talk to Simon on a walkie-talkie, but they're having some interference
from what? And his werewolfness.
I don't know. I think it's just a weird, like, they have shitty walkie-talkies.
I'm guessing that's what it is. It's like, 1992 technology. I gotta say though, top 5 places to sit around a fireplace: the woods.
Well, count them down for me. So we've got woods number 1, or is that later in the list? I don't know. This is your list, so you have to explain it.
So top 5. 1 is your backyard.
Okay. Well, okay. All right.
2, woods. Classic.
Wait, number 1 is your backyard.
Yes. They don't have to walk so far.
Okay.
You go back inside afterwards.
Okay. All right. 2 is the woods.
I'm going to peak with the least best place to do it.
Okay.
2, the woods.
All right.
3, your garage. It's hard to do.
That seems dangerous.
It's very dangerous. And the smoke, it can get really bad, but
Okay. You have to leave the garage door closed?
You gotta leave it open so other people can see it and think maybe it's a good idea until they do it in their own garage, and then it's like,
okay. Is this just a fire on the floor of the garage, or is it in some kind of container, or
no? It's you just put a bunch of wood down on the floor of your garage and you let it go.
That seems like a very dangerous idea.
Some cities ban it, but
yeah, I mean California has a lot of wildfires, and I think they wouldn't let us do it in our backyard or the woods. So I guess garage is really the only place we can do it out here on your list.
No,
far.
4 under a bridge.
Okay. Also, it seems dangerous.
I don't know. You get protection from the rain, so your fire lasts longer.
It seems very dangerous.
And number 5, inside the house.
Also incredibly dangerous.
That's why it's not number 1.
Fair enough. I mean, I guess you get sort of a mini idea of that if you just turn your burner on your gas stove and stand around it for a little while.
Put wood on top of your burner.
That's right. Make sure you turn your stove vent on.
Yeah, you gotta have to. You want to have that run at least 5 minutes first.
Maybe open the window too. Probably a good idea.
Some people don't have windows.
Also, if you want to, like, there is the potential for a hacked version of that, which is that you open your oven and break off the bottom grate so you can get at those flames inside there.
I think the real hack for it, where if you want to be safe about it, is you get a nice fire pit going inside your bathtub.
Yeah, I guess that's true, because then if it just gets out of hand, you just turn the shower on.
Exactly. And you're sitting on the fire on the toilet seat, roasting some marshmallows
with the fire there. Yeah, I like that. I mean, you could also just replace all of the water in your toilet with gasoline and have it going in there.
Exactly.
So they're sitting there around the campfire in the second best place, the woods, when the moon comes out, and suddenly Mr. Cheney turns into a werewolf.
Good effect.
It's decent. It starts pretty well because he says, well, there's the moon. And he turns. And as he turns, they cut to another shot of him where he has hair on his face and like scary teeth. And I was like, oh, okay, that's a cool effect. And then they kind of whiff it by doing a weird like liquid morph where he turns from Cheney with a couple of appliances on his face to guy in a wolf mask.
Yeah, it kind of anamorphs a bit.
Yeah, the wolf mask is decent though. It doesn't look super cheap. Like they put some work into it.
It doesn't look like a giant mouse, which a lot of these ones from back then would have you believe a wolf man looks like. Are you for your werewolf dollar? What do you like? I think we talked this before in other podcasts because we love talking about werewolves. Are you into your werewolves being wolfmans or turning into actual wolves?
I think that this one is kind of what I like, which is a bit of both. Like there's a mixture of both.
I like them to be at least can be bipedal.
Yes. I think that because you have like the classics, you know, that this Mr. Cheney's named for, like Lon Chaney, which is just a guy with wolf makeup on his face, and then you have the ones where like American Werewolf in London, where he's just a full-on wolf creature. And then you have the ones in between. I like the ones kind of in between where they're sort of still man-shaped, but they look more wolf-like.
I feel like that seems more dangerous and more like
yes,
act against God. Like
I will say that my favorite, and I know that this is a problematic fave, but I will say that I think one of the best looking werewolves is
Teen Wolf.
No, he is the kind of werewolf I think he looks a little too much like a human. But at the beginning of Thriller, when they're watching the werewolf movie and the Michael Jackson in the movie turns into a werewolf, I think that werewolf looks great. Because obviously they put a lot of work into it. But I think that's like one of the best looking werewolves for me.
To me, one of the worst looking werewolves is the Harry Potter werewolves. They look like shit.
I don't even remember that there were werewolves in those movies. Oh, that's right. The
Professor
one guy.
Lupin.
That's right. I forgotten all about that.
Yeah,
and then you have the underworld werewolves where they're just big hulking, like sort of half wolf, half man kind of things. Which those seem more like they're for like DeviantArt people to jerk off over than anything else.
I mean, if they turned into full furries, that'd be pretty awesome because they'd have these big, nice, narrow hips and tight shirts. But like, I don't know. Cause I always grew up with the guy in the werewolf mask as the werewolf, so I always liked the man wolf. But then, like the first time I saw like a movie was trying to be like, you know, accurate to legend, and like they just turned into a big wolf. I was like, this is bullshit. I don't want my monster just to be a larger, like if someone was a wereparakeet, I would want them to turn into this disgusting, creepy half bird, half man thing.
Yeah,
not
a human sized thing with a weird beak and awful looking wings.
Yeah, and like just scaly hand claws. I would like if they turned into a slightly larger parakeet. Like, fuck that. I don't want that. Back to the show.
Yeah, I mean, I think before we get back to the show though, I think you could have the wolf thing, like they turn into like a regular wolf if you were trying to create like some sort of mystery about whether or not there was even a werewolf to begin with, and then you find out later like, oh, that regular wolf that I thought was just a wolf was actually a person. Like I think that you get a little bit of a pass for that, but if I have my druthers, it would be the kind of wolf that we see here in this one. He goes about trying to attack Marshall. He's about to kill him, apparently, but Dash shows up and knocks him out with a tree trunk and makes a log lady joke because the show loves Twin Peaks, which I don't blame them. And Simon shows up, and they're all there together, and they have knocked out the werewolf, and Dash shares with them some newspapers that he's found that basically shows that the previous 5 or 6 Harvest Kings have all, quote, gone to Spain. So it seems like it's definitely a cover up that the town's elders know about and they are allowing to happen.
Which is interesting when they get to it is that the the town elders they know about it, but they don't know about it.
Yeah.
They assume that's what's happening, but they're not. I mean, they are inheriting something that they assume kills people, but they're not exactly like, they don't know the specifics. They're not like totally in on it.
Well, and the weird thing too is that like, and this is a good time to talk about this, like Cheney is out there with Marshall. He knows that the moon is changing. But later we find out that he didn't know that he was the werewolf. So what did he think he was going out there to do? Does he turn into the werewolf, kill the kids, eat them, and then turn back into a human and just think that like,
A wolf.
oh well, I don't know where they went. Like, or does he end up back at his farm? And he's like, well, I guess they went to Spain. Like, why is that the excuse that they use for all of them?
I don't know, because it's very odd that when he like it changed the whole like what is going on when he did not appear to know that he was the werewolf later. I think he knows he's leading them to their death, most likely, but he doesn't know that it's from him.
Yeah,
which is there's a lot of werewolf movies where the person comes out of the werewolf thing and has no idea that they were the werewolf or how they got where they're at or whatever. But it didn't seem like that was what we were going to get here. And then he says, "How did I get here?" And you're like, "Oh, you don't know." But clearly the mayor and Radford do know, but they also admit that it's just always been done and they assume this is what happens, but they're not looking into it more.
Yeah. So we find out here too that Marshall has been slashed by the werewolf. So now he is concerned about potentially changing into a wolf himself. And they take the wolf back to Marshall's place, which they have this funny line of like, we gave him a few more hits on the head with the log, and then we took him back to my place. It's like, oh, good, he's gonna wait. Maybe that's why he doesn't know where he is, because he's got a fucking concussion.
I love the few more knocks to the log. That was really good. Then they have this whole fight because Dash X, Dash Plus, the newest streaming service in town, has wanted to keep a low profile because he's stealing shit and he lives off fish heads in the woods. But now all of a sudden he wants to become famous by basically selling this werewolf. Yeah. And then we get to have Marshall go, but he's my werewolf.
Yeah, he wants to sell him to either the zoo or the National Enquirer.
It's very odd. Like, and like all it comes off like is Dash is a agent of chaos. He just wants shit to happen. He doesn't care. Like, he's not invested in becoming rich off this and becoming famous, but he would love the chaos that it would cause and lead to him getting money to then still live in the woods eating fish heads.
Yeah, I think that must be right. But Marshall says no. They're gonna figure out a solution to this. So he wants to go to talk to the powers that be. He wants Dash to stay there and watch the werewolf, but because Dash is concerned that Marshall will somehow try to sell the werewolf without him, he demands to go too. So they go off together. They leave Simon to watch the werewolf, which is a bad idea.
It's just a bad idea. He's just a baby.
Yeah, that's right. You don't put a child in charge of something like that with that responsibility. His motor functions have barely developed.
You don't buy a puppy for a baby. I know you think they're going to be best friends, but it's just the baby isn't ready to take care of it. You are busy with a baby, so you don't have time for the werewolf. It's just a bad idea.
So they go to World of Stuff where the mayor and Radford are, and they confront them about what's going on. And the mayor explains to them, like, basically what you've already said is that they sort of knew what was happening, but they didn't really investigate it. And also that people in this town and also this country like looking the other way, and they don't like looking too deep into things. They would rather not know about what's going on, and they would rather just have things work for them, which is a very poignant, on point statement about the country that is as relevant today as it was in 92.
Yeah,
It's still happening today.
Well, like I said, there's a phrase I was reading on the internet recently that kind of summed it up pretty well, which is strategically naive.
Okay.
Where, like, say you have a product or I don't know, a movie that appeals to awful people, and I don't know, white supremacists or whatever, and you know it does, and everyone else knows it does, but you kind of pretend it doesn't, and don't do the things that would make them not like your product or mission statement or political party. You are being strategically naive. Like, say you knew someone was dying by a werewolf to help you, but you didn't have direct evidence of it, but you pretty much knew.
Yeah.
You just look the other way. You don't even give that person a day with John Cena first.
Yeah, because it doesn't affect you personally, so you're able to just like not think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
It's fantastic. And then John Cena has a day off, doesn't have to deal with it. Still.
So they they're kind of angry, and the mayor, heads off, and Radford is like, well, it's tradition, and kind of not really sure what to say. He seems very sort of befuddled by the whole thing.
This is what I love about this episode in general, is that Radford seems torn because his buddy Marshall is involved in it. He wouldn't have cared if Dash had been the one who was sacrificed, and who would? No one would really. But Marshall's his buddy, and he kind of doesn't want this to happen to him. It's made him have a crisis of conscience. Except this Radford is not Marshall's buddy. He is new as of last episode.
Yeah.
He is a completely new character who was locked in a basement for the entire run of the show. The entire time Marshall was in Erie from New Jersey. He has never met him until last episode.
Yeah.
In fact, in most shows, Marshall would have saved him, except this show where it happened off screen.
Yeah. I mean, I think they do say that it's been a couple of weeks since then, so maybe they've gotten to know each other very well at that point.
But it really seems like he's just inheriting the relationship that Marshall had with the fake one. So, which is just kind of funny to me that they just have gone this way. Like they themselves have forgot that he's not the original Mr. Redford in the show. Like, we've always hired John Astin. We've always wanted that character to be John Astin, and now we're pretending he always was John Astin.
Yeah. So we cut back to the house. Simon is there holding the stick on the werewolf, who still is knocked out and tied to a chair, but he gets hungry, and so he goes over to the counter. And this kind of goes back to even early days of this show when we talked about kind of the ramshackle nature of the Teller household, where things are just everywhere, and they have multiple cereal boxes open on the countertops and just kind of all over the place. They have a full apple pie out on the counter with whipped cream on it, like dolloped on it. It's just sitting out in the open, and it's like, why is that there? Why is that not in the fridge? Why? But Simon then takes his whole hand like a fucking bear cub grabbing something, and picks up the piece of pie and just starts eating it over the tin like a monster.
I have never seen someone eat a apple pie like a pizza pie. Besides Garfield, maybe. This
is the equivalent of like taking a deep dish pizza and trying to eat it with your hands.
It's so bizarre to me. It all holds together very well for him, but like when you eat a pie, like, does the bottom part stay so solid? It's not soaked through and fall apart in your hand?
It's a poorly baked pie.
It's very odd to me, but yet Marshall does it.
It's a bad bake, Mary.
It's a bad I'm very upset the baby did this. He doesn't know any better, though. They eat with their hands.
So he's eating the pie when the werewolf escapes its bonds and grabs him and seems about to kill him until Cindy walks in with a full avocado face mask on and sees the wolf and screams. And I guess her scream is so loud and piercing that it's like a dog whistle because it freaks out the werewolf, who then breaks through the window and runs off. Which we don't see Marshall's parents anymore in this episode, so I guess they're just fine with a story that some giant raccoon came into their house and destroyed one of their windows.
Well, they mention later, like when Marshall tells the baby, like, "Hey, do you think my parents will notice this wound I have on my arm? Oh, but not like this. He has an effect from the werewolf." And he's like, "Do you think my parents will notice?" And the baby goes, "Knowing your parents, no." So they're well aware.
Very good point. So they're Dash and Marshall arrive home and they try to help everyone, and they realize that the werewolf is out there and they have to stop it. And suddenly Radford shows up, decked out in hunting gear with a rifle and a bunch of bullets, including a silver bullet, and he's there to help them stop the werewolf because he doesn't want his good friend Marshall to get hurt.
He's also going to take down the after he's done with this, he's also going to take down the Warren Commission.
Another one of those patented eerie jokes that no child will understand. I'm 35 and I don't know if I totally understand what he's talking about.
I'm just like, at some point they're going to mention Zapruder Field.
Yeah, Marshall will try to solve it. So they go out into the woods and they find the werewolf. He jumps up onto this ledge and there's fog everywhere. And the moon gets obscured by a passing cloud. And he becomes Cheney again, who doesn't know what's going on, doesn't know how he got there, doesn't know why everyone is standing around him. And then the moon appears again, and suddenly he's back as a werewolf. He jumps down, grabs Marshall. They're kind of... Radford's trying to get a good shot. He doesn't want to hit Marshall. And Dash X does not give a shit because he just pushes the gun down. Radford fires, and the werewolf is hit in the foot. And this cures him somehow.
Yes, apparently if you can kill a werewolf with a silver bullet, but if you graze them in a non-lethal spot, the silver instantly makes him no longer a werewolf.
That's very bizarre. I don't think I've...
It's very convenient.
It's very convenient, and I'm sure that must have shown up in a movie probably before, or some sort of werewolf tale. I don't know for sure, but it feels like that's something that could have shown up, but it just seems weird because like the whole thing you hear of with a silver bullet is that you got to kill them. You got to shoot them in the heart or the head or something, and the silver will make sure that they die.
They stay dead, basically.
And they don't come back. But like, if you could just put some silver on them and they would change. Like, just give them like a...
And like not even stay in him. Graze him.
Yeah, just give him like a silver cross or something to wear, or a silver necklace or a silver bracelet that he has to wear constantly.
Like, just cut him with a silver knife once.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Like, anytime he feels werewolfism coming on, he can stab himself with a little silver pin.
It's so funny because like this is a solution, and then like Marshall now, I was like, okay, does this mean Marshall is no longer become a werewolf because the werewolf that made him a werewolf is no longer a werewolf? No, Marshall's still going to become a werewolf. So he mentions that was the only silver bullet they had, so he can't get a flesh wound to be cured. So
I would have loved it. This show had somehow ended with this kid's show ended with this guy shooting a child
intentionally in the foot. Instead, he makes.
I'm just going to blow off your pinky finger, Marshall.
Instead, they make him a chicken blood and eyeball milkshake.
Yeah.
Which Dash is just over the moon about that Marshall has to eat this disgusting drink.
Yeah, this big chunky beverage. And they're concocting this thing.
Episode is brought to you by Chunky Beverage. Use offer code Center of Chunkiness. Get 5% off your first chunky drink.
Yeah, if you sign up today, they'll send new chunky beverages every month.
Each month, chunkier than the last.
Till eventually they're just solids.
The drink you can drink with a fork.
So he drinks this concoction, but it doesn't completely cure him, apparently, because the next full moon, something weird happens, which is that he has big giant mutton chops.
He basically joins a 1991 metal band.
He looks like Joaquin Phoenix in Inherent Vice. Basically, he's got these huge mutton chops on his face. You can see where they didn't apply them very well. You can see the little like plastic latex around the mutton chop application.
I wish this had been like 7 years later. He would have turned to the baby and go, "Hey, bub."
Yeah, he's a little Wolverine.
And the baby makes the joke that his parents won't notice because they don't notice anything. And then he says, if they do, Marshall goes, if they do, I'll just say it's puberty. And then the baby goes, puberty. Now that's real eerie. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? And then he goes, wait till it's your turn. I'm like, not for like 17 years. He's a baby.
Yeah, he's got plenty of time before puberty hits him.
He's got plenty of time before he gets out of diapers.
Yeah, before he graduates preschool.
Until he gets pull-ups.
Till he can ride without his training wheels.
He's so far away.
And that is the episode. It's a good one. I loved it throughout. And I think a lot of it does chalk up to having these one, like we already mentioned, these good actors. Like you have these people who are engaging to watch, Gregory Itzin, John Astin, and Stephen Root. Plus, I think that Dash, even though he doesn't have a name yet, I wonder if we're not going to get a name for him until the end of the final episode or something.
I can't believe he's not Dash yet.
I know, but
I thought when they wrote, they were going to write a name down for him on the lottery ticket. I thought they were going to go, I don't know, let's just call him Dash X, and that would be where we get the name.
Well, I thought they would have called him Dash because he's always dashing around stealing things, and then the X's would come from his hands, but they don't do that.
He's overacting so much, and it's such a bizarre performance, and Marsden's voice is so distinctive anyways, and he's always trying to do the adult voice. He's trying to do Jack Nicholson out of a little kid body.
Yeah, he is doing Christian Slater doing Jack Nicholson.
And it's hilarious because it's not good, but also it gives every scene he's in this bizarre energy.
Oh yeah, for sure. Having him added into the cast, I think definitely is like going to make the next few episodes that we have until the end of the season series really entertaining and engaging, because he adds this extra like mystery element there, this extra thing that they can play off of that they didn't have previously. Because before it was just Marshall and Simon doing stuff, and now they have this extra sort of spoiler kind of thing that comes in and can kind of really create havoc and chaos and add to what they're already dealing with.
Yeah, he legitimately is an agent of chaos. He has, I know we're supposed to like what's his motivation, and the fact that so far his motivation is I'm going to steal shit, and I laugh whenever Marshall gets in trouble, but I'll save him for no reason. But if he dies while I'm trying to save him, it's fine too. Like it's so almost like this pointless energy. Like he's got so much energy, but it's so unfocused that it works because everyone else is so laconic in the show.
Yeah.
So like I don't know why it shouldn't work. It's a Nickelodeon character on the show that is a Nickelodeon show, but it absolutely works because everyone else is just doing something completely different.
Yeah, totally. Well, I think that's going to do it for this episode of Center of Weirdness. Good episode. Can't wait for next time when we are talking about No Brain, No Pain, which should be interesting. I don't know what that's about yet, but I like the title.
Zombies?
Who knows? Maybe. But yeah, until next time, when we are heading back into Erie, Indiana, I've been Josh.
No, I've been Skinner.
Keep it weird, you babies.
It's trying to steal my gimmick. It's not fair.
It will be mine.